right, welcome back to another episode of D2D Success Stories. Here today with Andy Holmes. Welcome, dude.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, man. Stoked. So we were talking a little bit before about just kind of your career, your come up. I guess I'll do a little intro on you, and then we'll skip back to the beginning. So, corporate trainer at Ambia Solar, right? Three-time Golden Door winner. Is that what you said?
Yeah, 2 in pest, 1 in solar.
Which I love, by the way. We'll have to talk about that some later. And been in door-to-door for, was it 9 years?
Yeah, this is my 9th year.
Love it. So high-level guy, multi-industry experience, which is cool. So tell us, dude, where'd you grow up?
I kind of grew up all over the place, actually.
Okay.
I lived in Asia when I was super little. My dad was an investment banker for Morgan Stanley.
Yep.
And then switched over so we worked on Wall Street, and then we went to Deutsche Bank and lived in Hong Kong and Singapore, 2.5 years each. But yeah, did my early years growing up in Arizona, then moved to South Jordan right before my 9th grade summer, and then just been in Utah ever since.
Cool.
Yeah.
So your dad being an investment banker in Asia sounds super exciting to me. Was it, or is it just like a boring dad job like anything else when you're a kid?
I was little,
Yeah.
and one of the reasons why he got out of it was because we only saw him on weekends.
Right.
Because he woke up and he left before we went to school, and then came home like as we were going to bed or after we went to bed. So like it wasn't terrible, but yeah, we definitely saw more of him once he switched into other jobs.
Yeah. Which I'm guessing still kind of high-level finance stuff, but a little more local type flavors.
He worked for ASML, which is like a chip company.
Yeah.
And then he actually worked for the LDS or the Mormon Church.
Yeah.
For a handful of years, and now he's the CEO of a distribution company in the Middle East. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Distribution in the Middle East.
Yeah, kind of spooky, kind of scary, but he went to Egypt, and he also went to he actually got invited to go to the World Cup. Like one of the, I don't know if he's like $100 millionaire or if he's like a billionaire, was like, hey, come stay at my house. It's not a house, it's a palace. And
I love that type of stuff, dude. I always sometimes you see these people talking about like going and working for like an oil company in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Or, that type of stuff. And they're like, oh, so scared. Should I do it? Should I not? Like, bro, I would do that.
Yeah.
But, if I was in that industry, I would do that. Well, I'm sure just being like in finance or whatever, it's an exciting place to work because you're dealing with all these sovereign wealth funds and royal families, or like there's money changing hands in the Middle East, So
yeah.
Anyway, that's cool. Okay, so you grow up kind of all around and settle into, you said South Jordan?
Yeah.
Sweet. High school age or?
Yeah, just before high school.
Okay.
So I did a year of middle school in Utah. Middle school is 7th through 9th.
Yeah.
And then 10th through 12th is high school, and I went to Bingham High School, and that is a very good competitive high school at a lot of different things. And
how old are you?
29.
20. Okay, you're a couple years younger than me. Yeah, I remember I was trying to get picked up by BYU to go play D-line, and they were pretty much all full, and it was a whole bunch of kids from Bingham.
Oh, yeah? Yeah,
you know what you guys know. There was like 3 or 4 one year. They were all D linemen from Bingham. So
yeah, Bingham's got a lot of polys that they just crank them out. But yeah, Bingham is really good at football, and which is a good thing for those who are like super high level, for those kids. But it also really stinks for the kids who were really good, but didn't get any playing time because of just the elite guys ahead of them.
Yep. Makes sense. So what kind of kid were you? Were you playing ball or super studious, all the above?
No, so I wasn't studious. Like I've always been terrible at school because I went to Asia. The learning that we had there was like when I came home, I was like 3 grades ahead, but we didn't skip any grades, and so it was actually kind of like a detriment to me because everyone else had to study, everyone else had to like practice stuff, and I didn't, just because I already knew it. And so
form some bad habits, maybe.
I didn't learn how to actually like study and prepare for tests. And so eventually, like as kids caught up, they had good habits. I didn't have good habits. So I've never been great at school. I haven't necessarily seen a crazy ton of value in most stuff in school, which is against common beliefs, I would guess. But
for sure.
But yeah, I always played sports, like played football, played basketball. I ended up playing a little bit of tennis in high school. But yeah, I wasn't, how do I put it? I was really good at first, if that makes sense. Like I was naturally better than most people at most things.
Right.
Just like off the rip. But the problem was because I was better, once again, those bad habits of not having to train, practice, prepare quite as much, other people would catch up and get ahead of me. And so I'd get discouraged, and I ended up getting foot surgery right before my sophomore year in high school, and the coaches weren't showing a whole ton of interest in me because I couldn't really run all that well, and so I just dipped.
Yeah.
And so I definitely in high school have a few regrets. I wish I would have just stuck with football. I wish I would have stuck with basketball a tiny bit more just because I really enjoyed them. But yeah, I actually kind of used that later in life as fire or as kind of like fuel to do well in sales because I wanted to dominate at something, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I was kind of the same way. It was like a lot of things came easy to me. And so, there's like 2 or 3 things that I was just legitimately like the best at, in my town or whatever.
Right.
But anything besides those, I would just quit because my tolerance was only for just like dominating, winning all the time. Other than that, I was like, no, this sucks. I quit.
Your dopamine threshold, it's like your minimum level of dopamine required was so high that it was hard for anything to hit that except for the things that you were the best at.
Yeah, like I was really strong. I played D-line. I was a freaking brute of a kid.
Yeah.
So they tried to get me to go throw shot put, and I just could not tolerate being bad at shot put for whatever the learning curve of getting the form down. Couldn't do it, dude.
You had the body type, you had the strength, but it was just,
And it made them mad because they were my football coaches. So
gosh.
They were all like counting on me to help the track team. I was like, nah, man.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And especially because shot put's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you're on the track team, but it's not, you're not doing the same thing as everyone else, and you probably didn't care about it nearly as much as you cared about football.
Right.
So, I mean, it makes sense.
So we'll get into your later career obviously later, but just for a spoiler for right now, when did that kind of change? Like you said, later on you just wanted to like dominate at something.
Yeah. Had
a little bit of regrets of like, I've left some potential on the table in the past. What was like the moment of changing that?
That's a good question. I think like I've seen it every summer that I've went out and sold. But yeah, kind of my first summer, I was at like 145 accounts coming up on like July 31st or August 1st.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was really good, especially back in the day. Like I was probably pacing for like, 190, 200 at that point. Mm-hmm. But I was like, dang, like I really want to end August. Like I wanted to end at 225. Mm-hmm. And so, I was really going for 250, but my manager, he was like, hey, let's at least get you to 225. And so I went and did like 82 accounts in August, and I was getting on the doors at like 9:30, and I was skipping the morning meeting so I could get on the doors early. And I had like a 32 week as a rookie, which back in the day was kind of insane.
A lot, yeah.
But yeah, I guess I kind of saw it that first year where I was just like, you know what? No, I'm going to finish hard and I'm going to ball out. And then each year it just kind of progressed a little bit more. And I kind of changed my identity from somebody who gives up on things that I'm not necessarily balling out on to, I don't know, somebody who finishes and kills it.
Just more maturity over time.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also just more responsibility. I married my wife right before our first summer, and she got pregnant like 3 weeks later.
Yeah, that's what I did too.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of it was maybe maturity, definitely some more responsibility, but also just kind of realizing that I wanted more out of life. And this was like summer sales was one of those things that I could pump a lot of, I don't know, just like go really hard at and get a big payout for it. So.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a very direct feedback loop. Like I worked harder and it shows right here.
Yeah.
In a way that is quantifiable, you know?
Yeah.
Love that. There's probably an element too of like, you know, I love it when somebody has like a blowout finish to some time period, the summer, or it could be any time, you know, some incentive month or something like that. Somebody has a blowout finish because it's cool. We love strong finishes.
Yeah.
But then there's that question of like, could you have sold at that pace all summer? Should we do it that way next summer? Yes,
Yeah.
I think we should, you know.
And that's kind of, and I think I kind of took that and like would apply it to the next year and apply it to the next year. And so I would always use that to build up. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I would take that and kind of like build it into the next year, into the next year. But yeah, it's interesting because the end of every single summer of mine has always been my biggest month. And I think it might be because I see the finish line. And so like I'm going till I hit my goal. I'm not going until my end date, if that makes sense.
Right.
And so I think I just can see the finish line. I sprint towards it. When I feel like most people, what happens is they start getting tired, they start getting lazy, and all of a sudden they start rationalizing with themselves about how, you know, 80% is good enough. Like if they get close to their goal or they're not quite pacing for it, so they just drop their goal. And yeah, I just haven't done that. So
I don't remember what book or podcast or whatever this was, but they were talking about the idiot conversation. That was like their catchphrase. It's the idiot conversation that you have with yourself in your head.
Yeah.
Just about, well, this is pretty close. All of a sudden you're a math genius, you know, like every percentage you're like, this much is 80% of this, so that's 80% is good. Or it's like, this is like dumb, but you ever, you're on like the treadmill or something like that, and you're like, I'm going to do 2 miles. Half of 2 is 1, a quarter of 1 is a quarter, so a quarter is an eighth of 2. I'm an eighth done. You're just doing all this stupid math.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think, yeah, I don't know. I've always tried really hard to figure out why I want to hit a goal and like make it really deep, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Meaningful. And so, yeah, I just haven't been willing to negotiate on my goals like I think typical reps would, because once you start getting towards the end, if you don't have like multiple clear reasons why, you know, no matter what happens you have to hit your goal, you're not going to hit it.
Can you give a couple like examples of reasons you've had for yourself in the past
for going for goals?
Yeah, for like why it's important to hit it exactly and not just 80%.
Yeah, okay. My number one priority is my family. You know, and so what kind of example do my kids need in their lives? They don't need somebody who finishes at 80%. They need somebody who does what they say they're going to do.
I love that too, because, you know, I'm sure everybody would say their family, but then they're just saying, well, I got to like make money to provide for my family. And 80% of the money is fine.
Exactly.
But you're saying my family, I want to be an example to my family of a guy who hits goals.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like, it's not just about hitting my goals this year, but it's also like, if I can't hit my goals this year, if I end at 80% this year, how is that affecting me 5 years down the road? And how does that affect my family 5 years down the road? Because it's like, okay, now I have less money to invest. So now I have less passive income. I have less that I can recruit on. You know what I'm saying? It's like missing your goals, like missing our goals missing our goals hurts us way more than we actually realize until we actually like think it through the whole way down the road.
Second order effects, third order effects.
Yeah. And so because I care about my family and I love my family so much, like I need that extra money for this real estate investment, or I need to prove to my kids that like, you know, you can just make things happen. And I don't know, I don't set like necessarily easy goals either. Like I'm not just like making it so that way I'm for sure going to hit my goals. Like I've actually had to extend quite a bit, and it's been great because I've been able to grow a lot, you know? And so whenever I do, because I do a lot of sales coaching, mostly with pest control guys, even though I'm in solar now.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first thing that I figure out is, okay, what's your goal? Why is it your goal? and what is it actually affecting, not just this year, but next year, multiple years down the road. Because once that's strong enough, like we've all heard, like if you have a strong enough why, you can endure any how.
Yep.
You know, and it's like, I don't know, I just always give some kind of example of, hey, if you were to go from summer 1 to summer 2, and if you could find a way to double your production and you got $1 million bonus if you did so, what are the odds of you not doubling your production? Almost zero. Just because, like, dude, you're getting $1 million bonus? Like, holy freak. You would do everything you possibly could to make that a reality, you know? And so it's like, did you actually get better from year 1 to year 2? Like, what actually changed? And it was your commitment to hitting your goal.
Yeah, because we're all, you know, frankly, at almost all times telling ourselves some kind of a lie about we did everything we could.
Yeah.
It's like, no, dude, you haven't even unlocked how much you can. Frankly, you may even believe that you did everything you could. You just don't have the presence of mind to know how much more there was really there.
Yeah.
And it's like you're saying, you know, like if you're getting $1 million or if somebody's life was at stake, or, you know, you can make it as dramatic as you want.
Sure.
You'd learn all kinds of new things about yourself.
Yeah, and I think that the key is just obsession with it. Like, when I love the book by Grant Cardone, Be Obsessed or Be Average, and I truly do believe in that, because you'll meet a lot of really high-level reps or a lot of really, like, good people, I guess, who, like, gave it their all but didn't quite make it happen. I don't know, they're focused. They truly are focused, but they're not obsessed.
Right.
Like, you meet anyone who just absolutely kills it, and dude, they know where they're wasting a minute or two of every day. They understand, like, how they can tweak the smallest little things. They're just thinking at such a more micro, like, hyper-focused level than the typical rep, and that's why they're getting way bigger results. Yep. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, I do. So that's perfect. Love that. Let's jump back to, okay, so you graduate school.
Yeah.
And do you immediately go to college, or what's next?
I went on a 2-year church service mission, LDS mission. I went to Peru for 2 years.
Oh, dude, me too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Lima South.
I was in Piura, so I was up north.
Yeah. Okay. And you went pretty much right, this is post-age change.
Yeah, so I was like the first year where you could leave immediately after graduating.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Love that. And you went to Piura.
Yep. Perfect. So went on my mission for 2 years, came home, went to BYU, met my wife a few months after being home. Well, my now wife, obviously. Yeah. We dated for a few months, got engaged, and ended up getting married about a month before our first summer. And then, just
okay. So you got home pretty much right in time for school.
Yep.
Did that year of school, found your wife, got married, and then you could say the first summer you were available to do it, you went out and sold. It's a nice little timeline. Worked out nicely. Yeah.
Well, my older brothers had sold.
Okay, so you knew.
Yeah. So my oldest brother, he sold 4 years with Altera, and dude, like his best year, he made like $90,000 or 95, like just under 100. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, you know what, like.
I need that.
I need to go do something. You know, I need to go do sales. Like, I just knew I was going to, you know. So that was helpful. And also having a brother that I could, like, call on those Saturdays when you're sitting on the curb and you're like, dude, my team's at one sale. We've been out here for 2.5 hours. You know what I'm saying?
Hood, right? It must be the hood. And then your brother's like, no, it's not.
Yeah. So, just having that kind of support, like, I think was super helpful.
Yeah, that is. So you knew you were going to go sell. So how was it for whoever recruited you? Like, were you looking around a lot, or did you just kind of like know somebody? And
well, so my brother recruited me originally. Okay. He was he wasn't sure if he was going to sell that next summer because he was graduating college. And so he said, hey, if I do sell, you'll obviously sell with me. If not, like, I'd be under Tosh, I'd be under Jed.
I can vouch for these guys.
Yeah. Okay. And so he ended up not selling, and I checked out one other company and then ended up just solidifying myself at Aptiv. And so I didn't know anyone on my team. Yeah. Like, we had $800 in our bank account when we drove out to San Diego, which was $2,000 a month in rent.
Right.
So like there's definitely some stress that is associated with that. And then my wife gets pregnant like almost immediately after we get out in the summer and we start selling. So there was definitely a lot of pressure. But yeah, my older brothers had sold and I figured I could bet on myself. So
yeah, man. So you're, a lot of us door-to-door guys, we just measure ourselves by the total earnings of the whole summer. But
yeah,
you needed your front ends to just like pay bills that summer.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
had to make it go for right now.
Yeah. And it was crazy. It was stressful. I was the top rookie on my team. Number 2 on my team in general. But yeah, I don't know. My first summer was definitely like, I think everyone's first summer, they look back and they're like, yeah, it was sweet, but it was really hard. And if I could go back, I would have changed a bunch of things and done a ton better.
Right.
But yeah, no, it was good.
How'd you get through the learning curve, or was there one?
I did have a learning curve, but it was different than most.
Okay.
I went out and sold my first day and sold 5. And I was like, dude, like, holy, this is sweet. I'm like,
I am God's gift to selling.
If I could do this every day, you know what I'm saying? Or even if I only did 4 and you start like doing all the math and it's like, I go home my first day and I'm like, hey, I made more today than you would make in your 2-week paycheck back home. Kind of funny. But then I definitely had some bagel days and some not great days after that. I think the biggest thing was just sticking with it, if that makes sense, not getting too negative. Like, yeah, some of those early days are hard, but read the manual, train, practice, resolve ace closing, like overcoming objections.
Do you think there was any easily identifiable reason like why you started hot but then had some bad days after that? Like I ask because a lot of the time I'll have the same, and a lot of the time the first day the new rep doesn't know any different, so they follow the training perfectly, and then they get almost a little overconfident and then they veer off of training. Yeah,
I think for me, like I can definitely see that a little bit, but my regional manager, who's now president of sales at Aptiv, Tosh McIntosh, we hopped on a call one Saturday because I was just struggling. And he's like, the reason why you started hot and you're not selling well now is because I can just see it. You were bright, like wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, like your first day. You were just excited to be out, like excited about the opportunity. You weren't good at sales. You're better at sales now, but you were getting more sales just because of your energy level, like your excitement level.
Right.
And now that you're better at sales, you're selling worse. And it's because, you're just not bringing that same energy. You're saying the right things, but you're not, I don't know, like an actor who says the right words versus an actor who performs and says the right words. Like there's a huge difference.
It's a really important point for a lot of people to remember sometimes. Like if you're going through some type of a slump, you ask yourself, would a person who doesn't know how to sell but is happy, like would me my first day potentially sell better than I'm selling right now? Like, okay, my problem is I need to lighten up.
Which is a really hard thing to do, especially when you're feeling down in the dumps, because dude, like sales gets dark at times. Like when you're not feeling it, like the demons are there and they're real. And I think it's a lot easier said than done to just overcome those demons or those dark days. But
managers have to know how to manage it too is another big, I say this because I've got a lot of managers who will be dealing with that rep and they'll be like, I worked with him on this tactic and this objection overcoming and all these little things, and he's still not fixed. I don't know what it is. And I'm like, dude, that person's actually pretty good at sales now. They sold way better in the beginning when they weren't good at sales. So do you still think that this is a knowledge gap?
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not like, they got to be able to see it clearly, right?
Yeah. And I think that it's always going to come back to the inputs. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're not feeling it, if you're actually tracking your knocks and you're tracking how much time you're spending on the doors and how much time off the doors, like, I don't know, there's a direct correlation from those, like, the good days, you almost always put in more time and more inputs. The bad days, you figure that the neighborhood's not as good, the HOA, whatever, you start just like coming up with reasons in your head as to why today isn't the day to pop off. And because of that, you subconsciously stop trying as hard. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And it's like, okay, so on those really hard days, if you can recognize that, hey, I'm not giving the right energy, or I am slacking in this, if you can just double down on it and just say, hey, I'm spending my day here anyways, I might as well make the most of it. Like, dude, especially with rookies, like if you can just increase your inputs, you'll increase your outputs or your production as well.
It's something I talk about with my guys a lot, man. Is like, you know, there's positive and negative spirals, feedback loops in this. Like, you're vibing, so you sell, so therefore you're vibing even better. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it just gets better and better. But then the opposite can be true. You know, you can be not feeling it. The customers pick up on it, so now you're not selling. So now you're especially not feeling it. And the big question is, rather than those negative feedback loops continuing downwards forever, at what point do you have this kind of presence of mind to be like, wait a minute, self, why is this happening? And how do I put a bottom on it and start going upwards again, you know?
I think momentum in sales is probably the biggest like factor. Mm-hmm. You know, when you're not selling well, you're going to continue not selling well just because you're down in the dumps. Right. And when you're popping off, like when you're in a tournament or when you're going for a certain incentive, like, I don't know. I think that's something that's oftentimes not well understood. Yeah. Like when I'm mapping out how I'm going to hit my next goal, it's always, hey, because I'm going to be selling better, I'm actually going to be selling twice. You know what I'm saying? Like if I'm normally getting, let's say for pest control, if I'm normally getting 20 a week and I can find a way to adjust the inputs to get 25 a week, well, actually, no, it's going to be 30 a week because since I'm selling better, I'm going to have that much more momentum, the positive spiral. Yep. You know, I'm going to be able to pull even more people along. And so, I don't know. I think that goes back to why you can't just miss your goals, you know, because you start that spiral in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Because a lot of the best, how would I put it? I think a lot of people's real like explosion moments, they come when you haven't had a super awful day in a while. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's like maybe what are good pest control numbers? So like 8 or 10 in a day. That's really good, right?
Yeah, I would say the average rep is probably doing like 2 or 3.
2 or 3.
The good reps are probably doing about 5 or 6, and elite reps are, 8+ a day.
Yeah. So like in this example, I think you're most likely to have a 10-day, sure, on the heels of a 5-day, but also when you haven't bageled in a few weeks.
I can see that.
That would be my theory.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know. It's like consistent. Like you can build small explosions on consistency.
Yeah.
It's a matter of like ceilings and floors, right? Like you can raise the ceiling when the floor is solid.
Yeah. Yeah. Or a balloon. Every blow you blow into a balloon, like it's making the balloon bigger for sure, but eventually the balloon pops, But if you let out a little bit of air here and there, you're not getting close to that popping point.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so.
And sorry that I always go off on these weird tangents.
Me.
I have ADHD, and so I can't keep my mind focused on one thing.
No, me and you are the same. So it's I have culpability in that. Me and you are going to get nerdy on this podcast, I can tell. Okay, so you lighted up your first summer, finished lighting it up.
Yeah, I did 227, so like I ended on an upswing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And how's it work coming home from that? Like, are you still college boy dialed into like, this is a great thing to get me through college?
Yeah.
Or are you coming home like door to door is it, time to put my team together?
Well, I started trying to build up a team. Like I knew I was going to do door to door for my 4 years at school.
At least a few years.
Yeah. So it was good that I had a multi-year plan. I think that even if you don't know if you're going to keep doing it in the future, sell as if you are going to keep doing it,
Agreed.
Recruit as if you're going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I came home had a baby. We had a lot of money in the bank that, well, to us, like it felt like a lot of money.
Right.
You know, we had really low costs. And so, we just, it was funny because I started thinking about like the next summer and like what would my goal be and all that. And I didn't know anyone who had done 400 accounts. And I remember the year before, like at the Welcome Home event, Tosh, my regional, got up in front of the whole company and said, hey, I respect the heck out of these guys. Like, I know what it takes. You know, it's crazy. Like 400 was like the meta. It was the goal.
Yeah.
And so, I started chewing on that idea. And I was like, dude, if I hit 400 accounts freak, I'd buy myself a truck because, 400 was just unattainable. Yeah. And then, but I started thinking about it and I started chewing on it and eventually set the goal for 400 and ended up doing it, but I didn't quite know how I was going to. So that was kind of from summer 1 to summer 2. I think I brought out like 7 guys that second summer.
Yeah.
Co-managed a team with another rep. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
But you hit the 400.
I did.
Yeah. What's like, besides, I guess, just putting attention on it and getting awareness that like that's a thing people do, was there any other big key between summer 1 and summer 2?
I remember one specific moment, like a week and a half into the summer. So not necessarily between summer 1 and summer 2. But I heard this story about Brigham Lindsay. Okay. He's like the GOAT at active pest control, debatably one of the greatest door-to-door salespeople of all time.
Super consistent, right?
Super
Dude's
consistent.
been doing it forever, and just
he's the dude who broke the 4-minute mile of
pest control. Yeah.
He hit 1,000 accounts, and other people have hit 1,000 since, but like the reason they've been able to is because he did it first.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
I heard a story about Brigham Lindsay it was like a kickoff meeting, so like right before the summer, and I wasn't there, but somebody told me about it, and Brigham hops up on stage and he says, hey, I'm a normal guy. Like, I am very normal. I don't have any exceptional this, that, or the other. So if I can do it, you can too. And so I heard about the guy telling me this story, was telling me about his team leader the previous year, who was like, okay, well, if Brigham's normal and I'm normal, why not me? And that really resonated with me. Why not me? And so I remember one day specifically, because at 400 accounts in a summer, you basically need to do 4 a day. And I was at 0 accounts, and I had like an hour left of selling in the day. And so naturally, you start thinking, well, dude, if I could find 2, that would be sick, but like, please don't let me bagel. Like, that's how you start talking to yourself. And I just said, no, you know what? Like, why? Why not still go for 4? Like, my goal is 4. Why would I cut it down? Because if I sell 1, the house after that doesn't know that I'm only at 1 on the day. No one knows I'm at 0. No one knows where I'm at. So I went and I was like, you know what? I'm going for 4. And so I had a not home, something like that. And then I sold a door. I sold the next door. I sold the next door. And then I had one person answer on the phone and just kind of like, hey, shoo me away, whatever. And then I sold the next door, ended the night. I got 4 that day. And so it was just kind of like, really a cool moment for like expanding my vision a tiny bit and just asking myself like, why not? Like, I don't know. I thought it was, maybe it doesn't sound quite as cool to you or to people listening, but like for me, it was kind of like this shifting moment where I was like, you know what? I actually think I can hit 400 accounts, because 400 was kind of like this lofty goal where it was like, it would be sick if you hit it, but like, you don't really expect to almost double from summer 1 to summer 2. And I was like, no, you know what? I think I can do it. And I think that was a big like confidence anchor for future years. I remember that day specifically. I remember the house I was at when I had that realization, and I just kind of, went from there. It wasn't all smooth sailing, but I did it.
When I grew up playing sports, right, actually like mostly basketball through those kind of like middle ages, like late elementary and middle school or whatever, there's competing trains of thought, right? Like some people say play on a really competitive team that plays in the really competitive league so that you'll be challenged. And then there's other people. Actually, I don't know if anybody says this. Maybe I just say this.
Yeah.
I almost think I got better the years that I play. You know, they do like 2-year age brackets, right? Like 11, 12, 13, 14.
When you were the older kid and you were better and you got more time and you learned to have more confidence.
I just whomped everybody, dude.
Yeah.
You know, the ball went through me. I'd score 2/3 of the team's points. The league was just like scared of me because I grew fast too. I was a big kid.
Yeah.
But it's almost just like being used to being a winner and expecting to win things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like I don't remember what it was, Gladiator 300 or something. They're talking about some enemy army, and they're like, this army has never known defeat. It's just this random little line in the movie.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, it's like, why is that important? Like, they're just people who expect to win all the time. But, you know, I say all this because very few of us, you hadn't and I hadn't either. We haven't grown up winning everything our whole lives. But at some moment in time, you have to be able to manufacture this moment where you're just like, no, you know what? I think I'm a winner. I think I deserve to win. I'm going to go around expecting to win.
Yeah.
Instead of just what I've been doing previously, which is just esteeming myself as this middle of the pack normie, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's why a lot of people, you know, promote ice baths and doing hard things so that way you can callous your mind. And I do like that train of thought. Like, I really do. But I also think that sometimes things like that can be a distraction. Yeah. I think once you just focus on like, hey, I'm doing this, I'm hitting my goal, and aligning everything to point towards it, towards winning, that's when you can actually make it happen. Like, I'm not a huge fan of like doing all these incredibly hard things to just build up, like, I don't know. I think that you do need to have some confidence acres. Yeah. Like when you were the oldest kid in the league, it helped you a ton because you were able to realize, hey, no, I do dominate, you know? So I don't know. I think that finding those and finding ways to have confidence, whether it's manufactured or not, is super important.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So coming off of summer 2, you do hit the 400.
Yeah.
You bring out your team. How'd those guys do? Were they do all right?
They did. Yeah. Some of them did. I think my top guy did like 185 or something. So they did good. Some of them didn't do great.
Did you get some like continuity though? Like, did some of them come back for the next year and stuff?
Yeah. I had a few guys come back, and I didn't necessarily know how to transfer that same level of commitment to everybody.
Right.
To just like win and dominate. Because I don't necessarily think that I'm the best seller, you know, but I do think I'm more committed than just about anyone else, and so that's why I've gotten better results. And I wasn't completely able to help everyone else be as committed as I was.
Right.
Call it bad leadership, call it what you want, but yeah.
I'm laughing because I mean that's always the struggle, right? Like somebody's like, man, Andy, how do I get like you? It's like, well, be built different, bro. Be like,
which is
people say that type of thing to me sometimes, like, how do I do what you do? Care a lot more, dude. Just care more. I don't know what to tell you.
Yep.
It's tough.
Focus on it. Obsess over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny though.
Yeah. Sometimes people in the gym will come up and be like, dude, how do I get strong like you? I'm like, go back in time 15 years and start lifting really hard then.
Do what you're doing now and just don't stop.
Yeah.
I love that.
Cool. So what does building kind of into like year 3 look like?
Year 3, I kind of wanted to do 600 or 700 accounts, but like I was committed to doing 500.
A minimum of 500.
Yeah, and I did 500 that year. It was good. It was great. Like I was just constantly progressing. I figured that every year I should get better. Why? Yeah. Because I'm starting with more skill than I did the year before. Totally. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so every year I was just getting better. But year 3 is probably my slowest like growth year, if that makes sense, because year 1 to year 2 was like crazy.
Almost double.
Yeah. I couldn't 100% wrap my mind around it. Like I went to a wedding and my brother introduces me to one of his friends that he sold with, and they're like, "You did 400 accounts?" Like they were like fanboying over me, and I was like, 400, so 400 to 500, and then
Let me ask a question. So, do you think that if you had more fully wrapped your head around 400, perhaps you would have pushed further than 500 the next year?
I don't necessarily know if I would have. Like, the difference between my 400 year and my 500 year was just I was a little bit more skilled.
Yeah.
But I didn't have, like, all of my big growth years have been more of like deciding something mentally, And so I don't know. Yeah, I was probably missing like a reason to have like a huge jump from 400 to 500.
I ask because sometimes it's like if you still feel like 400's a lot, then 500's also a lot. You know? It's a lot plus 25%.
Yeah.
But if you just like immediately say to yourself like, yeah, I'm the guy who did 400, not a big deal. You kind of had that like act like you've been there before mindset. Then you start looking at 400 like it's small, and maybe you push a lot for I don't know, just thinking out loud.
No, I thought 400 was great. I knew I was going to keep doing better, but I was still looking at like the 700 level rep, and I was just like, dude, that guy basically did twice as much as me. Like I still couldn't wrap my mind around that, you know? And so I like started slowly but surely pulling those guys into my corner, and I'd text them every now and then. And like, it felt really cool that they texted back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I still felt like the newbie to the big hitter group, And so 400 to 500, that was great. But yeah, it wasn't until I was like, no, you know what? Like, I belong with these guys. And honestly, I think I can do a ton more that I really, really did pop.
Yeah. Which summer was it when you did kind of crack that 700, 800 threshold that you were viewing like it was so high?
Yeah, it was my 4th summer.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, pretty quick.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of had that 3rd summer where I did 500. I wouldn't say it was a lull year because, dude, 500 is a lot.
It's a lot. And it's a step up from the previous, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most people you can't just snap your fingers and go up by 25%, especially at a high level.
Right.
And so I was like, dude, I was happy with 500. I really was. I made really good money every year I'd done it. 2nd summer broke 100 grand. 3rd summer, made a little bit more than I'd made my 2nd summer. But yeah, that 4th summer, dude, kind of during the off season, I was just like wondering what was next. Do I go for 600? Do I go crazy and go for 700? And I just kept thinking about like the dudes who I looked up to the most. And it was the 1,000 account reps. And it was like having a golden door. And I don't know. I just kind of thought about that. And I was like, dude, that's crazy. That's ridiculous. But if I was to hit a golden door, if I was to do 1,000 accounts, like freak, what would that do? And I start like calculating commissions and how much money I'd make. And I had this goal to invest $1 million I had a goal to invest $1 million over the next 4 years.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, I need to invest 100K this year, 200 the next, 300 the next, 400 the next, adds up to $1 million. Yep. And at a 10% rate of return, that's 100K passive income. That protects us. That was kind of my thought process.
Reverse engineered the whole thing.
Yeah. I reverse engineered, and I was like, okay, I probably need to have a really big year this year so that way I can use that for recruiting. Because whenever you get in a recruiting battle, it's typically like, okay, you're selling on the team leader. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, if I'm 1,000 level rep, like I'll be able to start building an organization. Like I was just looking further down the road, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, I would have a lot of capital for now to get more into real estate, but it was also just like, okay, if I can make it happen now, it just adds that much of a multiplier to later down the road, But dude, going from 500 to 1,000, like that's wishful thinking, Like how are you going from 500 to 1,000? You don't do that.
So let me just jump in. So on a previous podcast, I talked to somebody about like, what they think about goal. Some people it's like goals of firm commitment, got to hit it. Some people they do this thing, and I don't like this. I'm a firm commitment guy. But some people do the whole like, oh, well, shoot high. And if you miss by a little, at least that's high still.
Yeah.
I can tell that you're a firm commitment type of guy. Like you think really hard because your intention is to hit it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's like scary setting a big goal if you know you're going to hit it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, what are you willing to sacrifice? And I was like, I don't know. It was hard. I started trying to wrap my mind around 1,000, and I was like, okay, like I just went through this whole mental process of like doing the math to get there. Because if you don't understand how you're going to hit it, at least have like a decent plan, you're not going to hit it because it's a wish at that point.
Right.
Right. And so I was like, okay, I did 500 last year. So naturally I should do 600 next year. Okay. So I'm starting at 600. Okay. And then I switched from San Diego to Tampa, Florida. And so I was like, I looked it up and I was going to have an extra 20 or 25 minutes of daylight every day. But 20, 25 minutes of daylight is like an extra, I don't know, 20% of prime time, when you're selling the best, when everyone's home. Mm-hmm. And so I started doing the math and I'm like, okay, if I had an extra 2 weeks of prime time, mm-hmm. and that should get me another 150 accounts. So now I'm at 750. Okay. And because I'd done 500 the year before, Aptiv has this thing where they give you your own service pro. So now you're not having to schedule out for the next day or 2 days out.
Yeah.
No, dude. Like
walk-in initials right now.
Yeah. Like sometimes I would just drop a pin and my service pro would come around the corner. Oh yeah, we're servicing John 3 houses down. Once we're finished up, and I could just like create really good reasoning for why I could give them a discount right now.
Yes.
And like with a customer, dude, oftentimes it's just helping them feel like, hey, right place, right time. I'll tell you what, after this one, we don't have another appointment for a couple hours. I have to pay my guy regardless, and I don't want to pay him to just do the Gatorade thing in the truck. Like, I'll tell you what, he's $18 an hour. If you'll pitch in a few bucks for gas, I'll give you the product for free. I'll just do this first one for $21. Does that sound fair? Or $21, like whatever. But like I made it. I get them to commit to the whole year. I'd give them a really cheap initial, and don't crucify me. Like this was back in the day when a $450, $500 initial was normal.
I remember. Don't worry.
But like I'd really justify it. So they're like, oh, I'm getting the product for free. I'm just covering the guy's time and a few bucks for gas. Like, okay, fine, I'll give you a shot. And he comes right over and I service him. And so I was like, okay, I should be able to get more sales because of that. And I should have, less cancels. Mm-hmm. So like, even if I didn't sell any better, I'd probably get at least another 75 or 100 accounts just off of having my own service pro.
Yeah.
And so now I went from 500 to 600, 600 to 750, 750 to 850. I'm like, okay, cool. Like it started getting a lot easier like that. Then I was going to get a Segway when I'd only been walking. And I ended up getting like 4 or 5 Segways. At one point I had 9, I think. Just because I'd get a flat tire and it wasn't worth my time to figure out how to fix it. So I just buy a new one. Yeah. But I was like, okay, I'm going to get a new Segway. Or I'm going to get a Segway. I got a second iPad on a different data provider. Why? Because when Verizon's not working, the guys on the team with T-Mobile, AT&T and T-Mobile. When AT&T was working, T-Mobile was struggling. And when AT&T wasn't working, T-Mobile was working great.
So you just optimized everything.
I just asked myself, what are the most annoying, frustrating distractions during the summer? Mm-hmm. And I just went from that. Actually, I lied. I didn't. The Segway thing was actually year 1 to year 2. I don't know why I thought it was thing year 4. What I did was I bought a bunch of extra Segways. Yeah. Why? Because I hated having to go to lunch and having to find a place with a charger. You know what I'm saying? And if all the chargers were used, you have to go find a different restaurant. Like, how much time did you end up wasting? And I was like, I just started calculating what my time was worth. Mm-hmm. And then I started calculating what each and every door was worth. Mm-hmm. I knew the dollar amount of every single door. I think it was worth $20 or $25 to me.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, knocking more doors was fun. Because if I can knock an extra 5 doors at the end of the day when most people are going home and it's $20 a door, and because I decided not to go home when I should have, but I worked an extra 5 or 10 minutes. I made an extra $100, whether I got a sale or not, just because it would average out to that. So like, yeah, what I did, I went from 500. I started finding a way to make it so that way hitting 1,000 wasn't only attainable, but like easy, because I was going to have a baby. Okay. We were having a baby in October. I wanted to hit my goal in 6 months. I'd only ever sold a 4-month summer. I wanted to go 6 months, but if I needed to, I would come home for my baby and go back out for another month before the cutoff. Okay. And so I was willing to do 7 months. And so if in my mind, I was at 850 and then Segways, iPads, eating the same lunch, like I got my favorite shirt, I went and created like 5 of the same one. I wore the same thing every single day. Like I made it so that way everything was just so easy and things couldn't get in my way. So I could just stay focused on going for it. And like, I mean, I was at 850. I would try to assign a number, like how many extra accounts each one of these things would add up to. Let's say the Segway iPads add up to like another 50, whatever. Okay, I'm at 900 accounts. But that's in a 4-month summer. If I'm willing to do a 6-month summer, that puts me at 1350. And if I had to do a 7-month summer, like the way my math was adding up, now I'm at like 1,500 accounts. I was gonna stop once I hit 1,000, but like I changed everything so that way like all of a sudden 1,500, like yeah, that would be crazy, but like I for sure believed that I could hit 1,000. Yep. You know?
Yep.
And what's crazy about it, dude, is my best week ever was 37 accounts. Okay, and so I did the math. To do 1,000 accounts in 6 months, that's 40 accounts a week. And so it's scary to set this big crazy goal of, oh, I have to hit my best week every single week for 6 months straight. Like that has to be my average.
But you set it up in a way in your mind where that 1,000 felt like the low goal. 1,500 was technically plausible. 1,000,
yeah, and I think the way my math added up, like this was kind of me spitballing. It has been a handful of years since then. I could probably go back and look at one of my journals, but I think like it should be reasonable for me to hit like 1,250 or 1,300. And so, okay, if that's reasonable, then I could do 1,000. And I remember that 700 level rep. His name's Jared Brown. Okay, the one that I was like, he was texting me back, and I was just like, wow. Okay. He's actually the OG of the Segway. He was the first person to take Segways out. Okay. I remember partway through that summer, my regional told me in one of the regional threads, I don't remember if he sent me a screenshot or if he just texted me, he said, Andy can't hit 1,000. And this was like the guy who was like helping me out. Or this was the guy who like I cared when he texted back kind of thing. Yeah. He's like, Andy can't hit 1,000. He didn't do enough preseason accounts. Because
he thought it was mathematically impossible.
Yeah. And I wanted to be at like 200 preseason, but like the way weather just worked out that year and just family stuff, like I went out to the summer and I was at like 25. Yeah. And you know, so I had to change some things up, right? But yeah, he's like mathematically, it's improbable, like impossible that Andy hits 1,000. Then I just kind of like chuckled to myself because I was like, that's because he doesn't understand the math like I do, you know? And so because I knew my numbers and because I knew my math, I wasn't wishing to hit 1,000 accounts. Most people wish that they could hit a big goal. Like, oh, it would be sick if I did, if everything went right. But no, like I was 100% committed to it. Like I would have died out there in the process of hitting my goal just because it was so important to me. It was so important to my family. And like, dude, like if I look back, me hitting 1,000 accounts, that's catapulted me into so much more success and so much more money just because like I'm a golden door rep. I'm 1,000 level rep. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, you can go forward into the future saying that one.
Yeah.
Recruiting on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would tell myself like the affirmation that I had that year. Like I truly believed that it wasn't that I wanted to hit 1,000 accounts or like it would be beneficial, but I believed I was supposed to. Like I really did. And so my affirmation 10, 20, 100 times a day was I am 1,000 level rep. God and the universe want me to hit 1,000 accounts. I can't control what other people think of me. I can only control my own actions. It was that exact same word tracked thousands of times that summer.
Yeah.
And like, awesome. I truly believed it. And what was cool about that was because I believed that I was supposed to hit 1,000 accounts. If I was ever having like a down hard day, and like, I'd be like, dude, I'd say a little prayer, and I'd say, God, Heavenly Father, like, I don't have it right now, but I need to perform so that way I can hit my goal. I can't fall behind on my goal. So because I know I can't sell right now, the only person I'll be able to sell is a laydown. Like, I know a laydown's coming. And dude, it's so funny because I can't tell you how many times within the next 3 to 5 doors, I would just get this mega laydown. And when you're not feeling it and you get a mega laydown, that is the most nerve-wracking thing because you're like, dude, I cannot, like, they want it. I can't blow it. Don't say anything stupid, you know?
I don't know if I can even fill out these papers without being weird.
I don't even know if I can sell a laydown right now. But what was sick about it was because I believed, like, I was supposed to hit my goal. Like, I 100%, 1,000% believed that. I knew that things would fall into place for me to hit my goal. You know, law of attraction. Since then, I've read the book, The Secret. Like, I don't know. I think that is one small little hidden gem that just like, I just believed it hard enough that things would fall into place. And I did everything so that way I would be ready for when things did need to fall into place. I don't know. I've just been able to hit my goals over the years.
Love it.
Yeah.
Tons of nuggets. That's perfect. So let's go. That was what we needed to hear. Let's go a touch faster through some of the rest of this. So that was summer 4.
Yeah.
You do 4 more of pest control?
I did 2 more years of pest control.
Okay.
I did 1,000 accounts again. Long story short, I wasn't going to have a down year.
Right.
You know, I got a lot of respect from my 1,000 account summer, but because we'd opened up a branch, and we didn't have like a great branch manager, our retention wasn't as good as the rest of the companies. And so people were like, oh, Andy has a golden door, but there was an asterisk next to it. Yeah, but
they're always ready to say something.
He must have been selling sketchy accounts, right? And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, that's fine. And it was cool. It was fine because like everyone, like, people just believed it. Yeah. My regional, the one who said the 400 thing, Tosh, the CEO, Vess, they said, hey, Andy, we are really proud of you, but you have to take some responsibility for your retention this year. I think I had like 65% retention or like 35% cancels, which was really bad at the time. Yeah. Now it's more normalized. But I was like, okay, I went out, did 1,000 accounts again during COVID in one of the most heavily knocked cities, Raleigh. Like, everyone sent their teams to Raleigh, North Carolina that year because New York got closed everywhere.
Right.
Yeah, I did 1,000 accounts again in the exact same number of days as my 2019 summer. But this time I had 85% retention. So that kind of like vindicated me. And yeah, after that, like I was still, so my 6th summer, I was still knocking. I went to New York, but I was kind of transitioning off the doors just as I was having more kids. My family was getting older. My wife's getting tired. I set a goal for 400K. I did that in like just over 3 months and called it. Like, could I have gone for golden door? Yes. But like, dude, when you've already got 2, what's a 3rd golden door? I mean, terrible thinking, but like, that's how I thought about it.
Yeah.
Switched into solar that next year. So this would have been year 7 for me. But the problem with solar was I didn't have 2 golden doors under my belt. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like,
you have to reform that whole like.
I had to reestablish myself as the dog.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And so I went and hit a golden door that year. That was my hardest golden door by far. And then this last summer I sold enough to hit a golden door. But just with permitting different stuff, I didn't get enough installed in time. And so, yeah.
Do you know how many people have golden doors in multiple industries?
I
would bet it's like 3 to 5, maybe.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I've heard of like a guy who was doing roofing, and so he had a golden door in roofing, but when he would sell somebody a roof, he'd say, hey, if you get a small solar system, now you get you bundle it all into one. We're not going to itemize it. You get 26% back.
We'll put it in the solar loan.
Yeah, you'll get 26% back of a tax credit, even on your roof portion. So I heard of somebody doing that. I don't remember who it was, and I probably am missing some of the details. But
it may not even be 3 to 5. It may just be like you, one other person. I don't know.
It's a very small number. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I have a random one I want to go back to. So, I asked this because I love kind of the take a stand, hot take type of things.
Yeah.
So from your first 1,000-year summer to your second, you went back and hit 1,000. I'm sure for a bunch of reasons, but there was a little bit of a reputation thing there that you wanted to vindicate.
Yeah.
So here's my question. I've heard some people saying recently, well, all you can control is your character, your reputation. Forget about it. Basically downplaying reputation.
Yeah.
But sounds like it's important to you. It's spoiler. It's important to me too.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason why it was important to me, and it still is, but specifically from year 1 to year 2, was because all those things that I was needing to hit a golden door for, like having that sick resume, having that huge blow up year, or building a ton, I didn't get it all because of that first year.
For better or worse, we recruit at least partially on reputation.
Yeah. I didn't 100% get all of it like I expected. And part of that was because I got paid on less accounts. Part of that was because my team also got paid on less accounts. And so some guys that were loyal to me ended up leaving because they thought they were going to make $150,000 and it turned out that they made less. You know what I'm saying? And so I needed to go do it just so that way I could, it was either have 1 year with an asterisk or have 2 years as the dog. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the second both counts for itself and it kind of undoes your asterisk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I had 85% retention or 15% cancels that year during COVID when they would let anyone cancel, just, even if they called in and didn't want to cancel, maybe they get talked into canceling.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it was really important that next year for me to hit it. And it was a much more difficult golden door than my first, just because a much more difficult location.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I think having a good reputation is important.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I said hitting 1,000 accounts was so important to me, is because now I have this reputation where people want to train with me. They want me to coach them. You know what I'm saying? So
100%.
Yeah.
So as we kind of start to wrap up, now you're in solar, Golden Door winner in solar. Congrats.
Thanks.
As you move forward, where are you going? What makes you tick these days? What's the vision?
Yeah. A lot of the same visions that I had before, but they've just gotten a lot bigger. We're building this big, beautiful, really expensive home. The down payment for the house is more than what my current house costs if I owned it in cash. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a big thing. Also, I have this inner belief that I'm supposed to be influential. That's one of the reasons why, I started a podcast, Summer Sales Podcast, shameless plug.
Check them out.
But I feel like I'm supposed to be influential, and I don't necessarily know if I'm supposed to be in door to door forever. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. But I do feel like I'm supposed to be making these big plays, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not just looking at for some reason, a $20 million net worth is just what I have in my mind, and it's okay, the way you get that, you have to start moving into these bigger contracts. You need to start negotiating with the actual players. And I have no clue how I'm going to get there. But it's just a belief of mine. I believe that I'm supposed to. And so, yeah, what gets me going is just, I don't know, opportunity and big things. I'm always looking for growth. Just being excited to take care of my family, but I don't mean just take care of them, have enough. I mean take care of them. I love that my kids ask when we're going to the vacation house, or if we have, are we stopping by the rental property? Dude, that, I don't know, makes me feel feel really good. And like my son is really excited because we're going to have a basketball court at our next house. Like those kind of things, like, dude, I want to spoil my family so much. And so like in my pursuit of that, like that's what gets me going.
Love that. And besides the podcast, which I've listened to, it's excellent. Where else can our listeners catch up with you, follow you?
Honestly, social media, Instagram, Andy the Solar Guy, or the podcast, Summer Sales Podcast. But yeah, those are the main ways people can. If people want to see if it would make sense to coach with me, shoot me a DM. My bread and butter is helping people bridge that gap between being really good and being like excellent.
Yep.
So
love it. Well, thanks for coming on, bro.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in again to this episode. Check us out next week for another one.